What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube world and my fellow Barn Warriors? This is Chris, aka Barn11970, and as always, I thank you guys for taking the time to watch my video. Alright guys, I want to show you guys some of the stuff that I have learned throughout my research. A lot of it has to do with manipulation and people that are in control of what's really going on because the few take advantage of the many, especially through their ignorance. And if you've ever heard of the word hidden in plain sight, I'm going to show you examples of how the English language was basically created to manipulate people, and when it's right in front of you, you won't even stop to think about it. So some of the stuff I've already talked about, some of the stuff I'm going to put into this video. It's going to be a relatively quick video to kind of give you an understanding that words are a lot more than just noises that we make. There's actually a resonance behind them. There's a vibration. Vibrations can affect you, so there's a method to the madness. So let's just use some words when I talked about the fact that the United States of America is a corporation and plenty of other countries around the world are corporations, and how you are a corporation. Not literally, just your name. So let's get into some of the wordplay. So let's first describe money as far as admiralty law and how it actually has to do with water. Not literally, but figuratively. So when you talk about money, another name for money, before we get to that point, when you have money, where do you primarily get your money from, or you put your money into? You get it from a bank. Well, where can also you find banks? Well, you can find banks on either side of a riverbed, so you have river banks. Now, what is the purpose of a river? A river is to flow to the sea. Well, what's another name of flow? Well, that would be current, or current sea. Now, river flowing to the current, well, another name for current is money flow. So you have a river where there's banks on either side that flow to the sea, current sea, money flow. So what they're trying to say is hidden in plain sight, and they want the average person that doesn't research this stuff to think that's crazy and automatically dismiss it, because if you automatically dismiss something, they have you in control. Because instead of you taking the time to say, wait a minute, that sounds interesting, let's check into it, and actually learn some things, they want you to dismiss it so they can keep you under control. So let's get a little bit further into the fact that you're a corporation. You'll hear the expressions like, for example, it's none of his business, or mind your own business, or if you're spending time with somebody you enjoy, well, they're good company. If you get two wealthy people, they're about to get married in the merger of two corporations, well, they'll say if two people are getting married that are very wealthy, they'll say they are good stock. Things of that nature. And you have to think about corporations. Well, when you think about also corporations in business and water, well, that's why you're deep in debt and your house may be underwater, or you're flowing in equity. See, there's a lot of maritime words behind what's really happening. Believe it or not, I'm not worried about trying to convince people. Let's look a little bit more into the fact that you're a corporation. Well, when you die, you become a corpse. A corpse is a deceased company. That's why you'll always see on gravestones your name in all capital letters, because they're talking about the name as being a disbanded company. Well, when companies disband, what do? They sell off their products. Well, that's why you have a will and testament, because you are giving away your products, because your corporation has been disbanded. That's why, for example, when you get married, it's the merger of two corporations. You need a license to do that. So when you have a baby, your baby is the product of two merging corporations creating a product. So let's think about a little bit more of the whole corpse situation or corporation. Well, when do most people wake up? They tend to wake up in the morning. Well, where's another place you could be in mourning? How about a funeral? And when you open your eyes, what's another word for that? Well, you awake. Well, where's another place you can go to a wake? Well, that would be a funeral, wouldn't it be? The death of the person, the human being, and the creation of a corporation in your name. So these are either all incredible coincidences or there's meaning behind it. Now, I'm not here with a gun to your head telling you you have to believe in this stuff. If you want to choose to remain to be willfully ignorant and dismiss something before verification, then all you are doing is helping that system continue for years and years and millennia and millennia. Because control, they've mastered control. They've mastered slavery. Because I'll give you an example of how they've learned from their mistakes. And they, being the few at the top with the knowledge and the power and the financial ability to control the masses, well, if they can keep you in ignorance and they can keep you in fear, well, you're going to be dependent on them for them to save you and help you. So they want you in ignorance. That's why for thousands of years, the average person could not read and write. It was the nobility or even the church that did most of the writings of the laws. Because if you couldn't read and write, you were dependent on somebody else to explain things to you. That's how you control people. So if you look at, for example, and I made a prime example of this in a video interview I had. It wasn't part of the interview. When it comes out, I will post the link. So I want you guys to watch this. His name is Ernie, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I apologize. But when that video comes out, I will make a video posting the link. But I was saying about how fear and ignorance is used to control the masses, because the masses don't know what they're talking about. Masses are just basically followers who use emotion and the support of others to justify what direction they are being pushed in. It's just like cattle, and it's just like sheep. They will all follow the leader, even if it's over a cliff. That's why when you research how cavemen used to take down woolly mammoths by the dozens, they would actually get them to go into an area where they would fall off a cliff. So the elephants, even though they were following what the masses were doing, led them into their death. So if you want to be one of those people, that's fine. But I'm going to show you how fear is used to control you. Let's go back to the days of the Middle Ages. Let's say you're the King of England. Now, you own all of England, all of Scotland, whatever. And you profit off of your serfs and your peasants because they do the farming, they do the labor, they create the money for taxes, so the king can sit around on his throne telling people what to do. So he earns his right to basically do nothing but dictate authority because of the many who do all the labor. So it is only advantageous for him if those people choose to stay there and basically serve their master. Because if they all decided, well, I don't like the way the king is treating us. I don't like the way they overtax us. I don't like how they take half of my food. I don't like the fact that if I say the wrong thing, they could take my wife away or kill me or put me in prison. So I'm going to leave. Well, if everybody decided that the king is treating them unfairly and they decided to leave, well, the king is not going to make any more profits off of those people. So you have to find a way to keep the people there. Now, obviously, they didn't keep them there by making them all wonderfully happy, because as you see how many poor people there were through the world and how many sicknesses and illnesses and how much torture and death there was, they weren't exactly giving them every bit of luxuries for them to survive and thrive to stay. That would have been the best way, but that's not very cost-effective to a king, because if you treat your people good, you have to spend a lot of money. As you can see, the wealthier somebody is, the more cheap they tend to be. So you have to find different ways to control your masses to keep them there so you could profit off of them. So you can build a wall. Well, is that realistic? Just try and build a wall all around England. And England's not a very big country. If you think of other countries like Russia or China or the United States corporations, that would be virtually impossible and mega expensive, and it would not work because people can break through the wall. They can climb over it. They'll find a way. So you can't do that. You can't have an army big enough to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, make sure every single person is staying exactly where they are. It's just not going to be another feasible way to keep people there. So how do you get people to stay where you want them, even when you're taking advantage of them and they're suffering? Well, if you use fear, they regulate themselves. And how did they use fear? Well, they told people for centuries that the earth was flat, and if you tried to travel, you would fall off the earth and disappear. And even before you got to that point, there would be sea monsters, there would be mermaids that have been known to make boats go off course. You could crash, you could disappear. So the average person who couldn't read and write and believed that their king was there to save them, they would regulate themselves, because they say, wait a minute, even though I'm a serf for this king, and even though I'm being overtaxed, and even though my family's poor and we don't have a lot to eat, and it's a horrible place to live, it beats falling off the earth. It beats getting eaten by a monster. So what that does is it gets the masses to regulate themselves. So instead of going out and finding out that the world is actually round and they can go to other places and live happily ever after, like what eventually happened when the people rediscovered America. They didn't discover it because you can't discover a place where people are already living. That's how the country of America was started, because people were getting away from the tyranny. So you can't keep people for long. Back then, when there was no internet, there was no radio, there was no TV, there was only word of mouth pretty much, or horseback, information couldn't get out very quickly, so it took longer for things to change. Nowadays, with the internet, with television, instant messaging, everything is happening faster. Time bends. If you know anything about time, it is not consistent like they say it is. So there is all manipulation based on fear. So what is today's modern day fear? Well, they can't tell you that the world is flat because people would laugh at you. But then again, hundreds of years ago, if you said the world was round like Galileo did, well, the masses thought that Galileo was crazy. They made fun of him, and they threw him in jail where he died. So the masses don't know what they're talking about. They just thrive off of the emotion of other people, because people like to be liked and they like to be a part of something. So when somebody comes along and says, your whole world is upside down and it's wrong, and I'm going to explain why, the majority of people, instead of saying, I appreciate you helping me, they are going to say, I hate you, or you're wrong, or you're scary. And all the other people are going to back you up and say, yeah, you're right, he's scary, I'm with you. And you feel good about yourself. So what's today's fear? Today's fear are things like terrorists. Because at any moment, an evil terrorist can come out of the blue and attack and kill you. So again, you need the help. Well, when they put all these chemicals in your food and water, and they put it all in the atmosphere, and they do it in like ocean spills with all these different things that are going on, it makes you sick. Well, if you're sick, what do you need? You need medicines. Medicines cost money. They can keep you under control. And if you're spending a lot of your money on antidepressant medications, on regular medications, on the fact that the inflation, things cost more and more, and even if things don't cost more and more, the products are less and less. Try and find a gallon of ice cream out there. You can't anymore, but it's the same price as a gallon of ice cream. The point is, when you are dependent on the system, they contain control. So they don't want people to learn, to grow, to expand. They're still teaching old science based on the technologies of the 1800s. If you think we haven't become more technologically advanced and be able to discover things since that time, you're crazy. But they'll still teach in science that the empty space in space is literally nothing. And that's proven to not be true. Not only is there something in that space you can't see, because we only see visible light, which basically means in the universal term, we are basically blind, that there is connection to everything. All comes from one. It's an ever-expanding universe. It's all connected. It's just because you can't see the visible light, well, the light's outside of the visible light, you assume it's not there, and you believe the very people who profit off of your ignorance. So when people talk about things like cannabis, how it's much better than rope, like, for example, when you make hemp rope, or you can make biofuels from hemp, you can actually save the environment because you can grow it in your backyard. It takes less of the hemp to make paper or rope or fuels than it would be trees, so you wouldn't have to deforest all the time. It actually grows faster than a tree, so it actually would have a better recovery time. But you can't ever get that because they can't profit off of it. Same thing with sun gazing. I talk about that. There will be people who will automatically laugh at it and say, that's crazy, I've never heard of it before. Well, guess what? Sun gazing is free, and if you do it properly and your health can improve like mine, well, then you won't need medicines. You won't need to spend money on that, and you can use your money for other things that can benefit you. So I know this video started out with what I thought was going to be a quick video, and those who watch my videos know that's never possible. They manipulate you in every way they can. And that's why there are millions of people on welfare, and they could spend trillions of dollars for wars, trillions of dollars for other countries, but yet their own people in their own country, of the United States of America Corporation, they leave them to starve to death. How many millions of kids are on welfare? How many millions of seniors are wondering when they'll get their next paycheck that can afford this oil? When we've had wireless technology since the 1800s. Believe whatever you want. If you want to stick with old ideals, then just say they're funny, and you'll be just like the people for hundreds of years who were convinced that the world was flat, and if you ever traveled outside of your area, you'd be attacked by a sea monster, or you'd fall off the earth and never be seen again. It's all about control. If you like being in control, then research. If you like being an individual, then verify. If you like being under control, then laugh at things from people trying to help you. Instead of just saying, I'm going to use logic and say, I may not be familiar with that, but I'm going to look it up and verify. The only person you're hurting is yourself. So think what you want. Think what you want about this video. Think what you want about this message. It's all about getting the truth out. If you don't want to believe it, that's your preference. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered. Peace.